Welcome to the webinar. We're doing something that's a little bit on the technical side today. It's going to be a lot of steps, as you can see by the title. It's an 84-point checklist about getting set up and getting ready and doing some business things wrapped in with finding properties and how do you do a deal start to finish. So we're going to go through a lot of the critical ones that you want to make sure that you don't miss, and there are a lot of other things. It'll just make it easier for you. Like it says on the slide, it's a roadmap to getting your deals done easier. So if you know where you're headed, it's going to be easier to get there, and that's what this checklist is intended for. Now remember that we are easy to find. We're all over the internet right now and expanding. So currently you can find us on Facebook at Accelerated Real Estate Investing. We are on YouTube. You can subscribe to that channel. I Live Accelerated, no spaces between the words. On Instagram, same name, I Live Accelerated. We also have the website. You can subscribe to a weekly tips and tricks email that comes out every Monday morning, and that is at iliveaccelerated.com. We also have packages and programs available for you, everything from individual one-on-one coaching sessions if you just need a little bit of help getting your business plan put together or answering questions on a deal. And we have everything in between, such as group coaching, and we've got business coaching, all the way up to full-on packages if you want complete mentoring start to finish on your transactions until you get really comfortable. What we would like to do is just be a resource for you to help you be more successful. That's why we started Accelerated. So we want you to know we're easy to find. If you have any kind of questions, you need a free consultation, go ahead and get in touch with us. The very best way to get a hold of me directly is on the cell phone number right here where it says call or text 801-809-2764, or you can email any of us. This one is Christine's, this is Ty's, and this is Steve's. Now let's jump into step to step to step. How do you actually do deals? Now this checklist was set up so that it's kind of flowing start to finish. So if you're setting up your business at the same time you're trying to get your first deal done, if you're already set up in business, great. You can just ignore those steps and continue to focus on the ones that are very property specific. So you'll notice on this first page, it starts with writing up a basic business plan. Now, sometimes that alone scares a lot of people because they don't know how to start, how to put one together. There are a lot of things that you can find on the internet that can give you example ideas what to do. But basically, you want to just figure out what's your plan. In 5 years, where do you want to be? When you retire, where do you want to be? Do you want 10 rental properties? Do you want 50 rental properties? Do you want to fix and flip in the next couple of years and then use that money as seed capital to put into your rentals? Do you want to do lease options? There are many seller financing options that you can take advantage of. So just put together what kinds of techniques interest you, what types of properties you want to wholesale, what type you want to fix and flip, what kinds you want to hold just for long-term retirement, cash flow and equity building, and put some deadlines to that. So if you say, I really want to own 20 rentals, how likely are you to get 20 when you want them if you don't set a deadline? So for example, in the first year, maybe you get your first one. Within 5 years, maybe that second year you get 2 more, and the third year you get 1 more. The next year, fourth year, you get 2 more. So you can see how it's good to have it more detailed and more specific. And then also put some other things in there, such as how much marketing money do you have? And if you have a little marketing budget. And who does this affect? Is it just you? Is it you and a spouse? Is it you and a couple of partners from work that are putting together a little investing business? Who are the people that make up your company? And this is all part of your business plan. That can give you a more specific roadmap for you, not just like a checklist here, I'm doing this, 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 but where am I going? What do I want to accomplish? You will definitely get there faster if you have a plan in place. Then assessing what you can do as far as financing is really important. So right here for number 2, do you have any cash? Do you have an investing account? Do you have any money in savings? Do you have money in your IRA that's maybe not even bringing you that much return? Now, this past year has been pretty good for some stocks, but some years, you know that stock, they go down, 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 down. So if you're watching the trends and you decide, hey, this is a really good year to jump into real estate, great. If you are just kind of watching the market and you decide to diversify your assets so that you keep some in the stock market, but you're pulling some out and putting into real estate, that's a completely individual decision that you can make, but it is really, really good to consult with your professionals. So check with your, well, if you have one, check with your accountant, check with your tax accountant or CPA to see how things will affect you tax-wise. Do a little planning ahead of time. You'll see that this whole first page is a lot about getting set up. So if you need to check with, let's say, your investing advisor before you decide where you're moving funds around, make the time, make that appointment, go sit down, have that conversation or a couple of conversations, an initial one to tell them, this is what I'd like to do, here are the generals, and then they can put together a plan for you and you can come back and have a second meeting with them to go over specifics. That's a really smart thing to do because it should give you the greatest return on your investing money. Sometimes people don't have any money. Maybe part of your business plan and your assessing is, gosh, I don't have a dime to my name. Well, what do you do then? You do what I did and you find other people with money. So you bring in the skills and the time and the knowledge and all of that fun stuff, and then they bring in the cash and you guys partner together. And that way you can split the funds, split the profits at the end. And there are some things you want to be careful with. I don't go into a lot of detail on partnering in this session, but that's definitely something that I can help you with on some one-on-one calls, or we can even tackle in some group coaching. If you have, let's say, 2 or 3 business partners that you're pulling together, or you have a private investor or a potential private investor, and you're both kind of on the fence about how to put it together, that's something that I can give you general advice on. And then when you get to the specific contract, then you can take it to an attorney and have them look it over and make sure everything looks good on both sides, your side and their side. So don't let not having money hold you back from investing. If I had done that, I don't even think I would be investing now. And I've been in it almost 20 years this year. So if you wait 20 years until you have all of your own money to go out and buy the properties with cash, or to have 20 or 30% to put down and finance the rest in a loan, how long is it going to take you until you do your first deal? For some of you, that's a done deal. You're good, you're golden right now. But I'm talking to those of you that maybe don't have much or enough money to invest on your own. If you wait 20 years, you're going to miss out on all that equity in between, all the cash flow you could be getting in the next 20 years. All of the skills, all of the knowledge, everything that you need to become super successful. So my message on that is don't delay. Find a way to make it work. There are so many people in this world that have money. And if that's not you, make it you. Make it so that you grab that bull by the horns and you get out there and you just get brave enough to do one deal. It just starts with one. Now, some of these other things, I told you at the beginning I'd show you some of the critical things. So I just wanted to point out having some kind of a setup is critical. You can't just run a business without, say, a cell phone or a computer, a fax machine. Well, actually, the scanner, copier, fax printer, they're still out there, but hardly anybody faxes anymore except those government offices, like the county assessor's office or places where fax machines are actually still used in the world. But other than that, I put it on here anyway because once in a while you might run into it. And I believe the IRS actually still faxes as well. But for most of you, you're just going to need a good scanner. You can scan all your contracts in, save them to your computer, and you can do everything digitally right from your computer. Some people are actually fancy enough to have it all on a phone or a laptop or just a tablet these days. So whatever you need for your business. But the most important thing is to figure out what your setup is. Mine is fairly simple. I'm not a high-tech gal. But I think it is critical to have a phone, a computer, and a scanner at the very least. And then business cards, that again is kind of a preference, but they're still used widely in the communities out there to network. So your business networking groups, your real estate investing clubs, a lot of people still say, hey, do you have a business card? So I do recommend, even though they're more on the way out and people are becoming more and more digital, I'd still go ahead and get some right now. And then contacting your money sources, that is critical. So when you join, okay, down here, number 10, join a local real estate investing club and get referrals from other members. When you join a real estate investing club, I'll tell you, you're off and running. That is a great place to get so many things. Not only do you get education, you'll be introduced to other investors who might have some cash that could partner with you or invest if they want to be private investors and just lend you the money. And there is a distinction there. So when I say partnership or private investing, they're two different categories, but they can work kind of the same for you in your beginning business. So just know that whether I say one or the other, it's kind of interchangeable at this point, to just that it's a funding source for you. So your funding sources are critical to line up. And I'll explain why in a very brief way. If you're out there looking for good deals, driving neighborhoods, and you find a really good deal that just falls in your lap, if you don't have a funding source, that deal's going to be gone. They go fast. The likelihood, especially as fast as the markets are right now, the likelihood that that deal's still going to be there in a week or 2 weeks when you find funding is low. I won't say non-existent, but I will say it's low. So I'd really, really recommend that you guys you do some of these things simultaneously. So don't just take a month to set up your office, and don't wait 2 months until you get your business plan in place. Learn how to take all of these things on the list and say, okay, these are my first ones to get started with, and juggle them back and forth. If you are good at time management, kudos to you. But for those of you, and I know it's the majority because I deal with the public, the majority of you are not set up to be really efficient in business. So I'm going to give you a couple little tips. We have a whole webinar on time management, and I'm going to do another one coming up soon because I see a lot of people, including myself, you know, you go on vacation, it's the end of the school year, all of this, you kind of get off track a little bit, and it's good to get back on track. So I'm kind of feeling that bug, and I know a lot of you are as well from the feedback I'm getting. But just for now, for tonight, before we get to the hour-long webinar on it, just know that those little pieces, those little to-do items, you can put them in a long list, you can put them in a Google Doc, you can do it however you like, but you have to brain dump out of your head to say, what are all the things I need to do this week? And then you go to your planner or your calendar, whatever you use, and you plug those into different spaces. And some of that should be, I'll call it administrative, setting up your office, making sure you take some time to order your business cards, all of those things. And then some of those slots and those to-do things for the week should be making phone calls, going to any networking meetings that you can, even setting up coffee dates, just whatever lunch dates, coffee dates, to go and meet people, meet some hard money lenders, meet some private or potential private money lenders, meet some partners, some mortgage brokers, loan officers, realtors, anybody in your team. A lot of title companies will actually take you out to lunch on their dime because they want your business. So go get interviewed by a few title companies and see what services they offer, how much they charge. Those are just some ways that you can juggle between building your actual business, networking and building a team, and then the third critical part I would say is definitely get looking for deals. And that's going to be a little bit further in the checklist, but let's go to page 2. Talk a little bit more about the business name. Now I have a funny story for you. Sometimes this stuff gets a little dry for me, so I have to mix it up a little bit and tell you some goofy stories about my life or my business. So I remember my ex-husband and I started investing in '97, and a few years later in 2000 we were getting divorced. Well, that's about 10 stories in one, but not this story. But the point of the story is, after we got divorced, and this is why it was so critical on my timing, is because I had to go get a full-time job. And I had 4 kids at the time, and mind you, they were not grown up and self-sufficient. They were very young. So I had an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I worked a full-time job, and I did all this stuff on the side. That's why I know if you guys are driven enough, if you're hungry enough, that you can make this happen. There are enough hours in the week, 128 hours in the week, I believe, if I remember that right. So you take out your sleep hours, you take out whatever other hours you have for God time, spiritual time, family time, all of that. You have plenty of work hours. 40 hours a week for a full-time job, sure, it's busy, but you've got another good at least 10. Most people I can find 10 hours in their schedule where they can be building this business. So that's a little side note, but for number 11, choosing a business name. Imagine me, I'm divorced, I'm raising these kids, I'm working a full-time job, but I am hungry to start doing some more deals so I can get some chunks of money. I was motivated by the money at the time so that I could recover financially and in many other ways. You know, money takes pressure off in other ways, and so I just wanted some bigger chunks of money in my bank account again. So I'm sitting at work, and I thought I was so smart picking my business cards. I went to Vistaprint and I designed them all super cute, and I picked the name I wanted and I got them in the mail. And then I found out later there's something called a division of corporations. Your Secretary of State has a record of all the businesses that are out there that are registered. So that name was taken. And I had to take those cards and put them right in the recycling because I couldn't be someone else's business. And I didn't know, oh, there's an order to this. So if you notice, that's a long story to say these next 3 steps are important to do in order. So first, sometimes I crack myself up how silly I have been in life. But, you know, you live, you learn. Everything's good in the end. And I get to share with you guys what not to do. So number 11, choose a business name. That doesn't mean that you order your business cards right after that. That means you check the name availability with your state. Now, I know in the state of Utah, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same in every state, but it probably is. You go online and you can reserve the name. So if you don't have all of the details worked out about who all the members of the LLC will be or what percentages they have or exactly what you want your description of your business to be, any of those details can wait. You can just hold the name, and that way you know, okay, that piece is done, check, I'm good. And then you can go to number 12, setting up your LLC or corporation. And I put SCorp on there. That again is a whole nother conversation, and we do have a fun little interview that is going to be released really soon with an attorney that talks about LLC, SCorp, what's important. So just trust me for now. An LLC tends to be enough for almost all of you. I'm just going to say blanket statement. You will, if you stay investing, get to the point where you need something a little bit deeper like an SCorp. I've heard people say, get a C-Corp. I'm just going to give you a little side note here. C-Corps tend to be more expensive to start and set up, and they're also more complicated to keep going. And the tax advantages that most of you can get in your business are not going to be significant enough to bother with that. Usually an S-Corp is sufficient. So that is, again, not my legal advice to you because I'm not an attorney, but that's just what I have seen in business with my own and with other people's, and working with a tax accountant over the years to get the best deductions and save myself the most on taxes. I'm not a big fan of paying taxes that I don't have to. So that being said, back to number 13, call or complete the IRS form for your EIN or tax ID number. Once you have your LLC or corporation set up and you have an EIN number to go with it, now you can take those papers to the bank and you can set up a business bank account. And then down here, number 15, order your business cards. So that's why I don't tell people just go out and pick a name and order their business cards first, because of that fun little experience that I had. And so you'll notice it's down there in number 15. And then just whenever it is smart for you to sit down and have a consultation with your tax attorney, whether that's over the phone or face-to-face, it doesn't matter, but I really, really do recommend that that's part of your getting set up, is that this part with setting up your LLC and making sure you get your EIN, you have to remember this. I'm going to pause because it's important. When you have a new company set up, you know how you have your personal tax return, you got your fun little thing to fill out, that's you. Christine fills out a personal tax return. An LLC or a corporation is its own entity. It's like another little person. So that business name fills out its own little tax return right there. This again is something that is one of those be careful how you do it things. But once you set this up, remember that you are now official. Just because your company doesn't make any money that first 6 months or 3 months till the end of the year or whatever it is, it's still required to file a tax return. And business tax returns, I'm not going to get into all that right now. I'm just going to say there can be penalties associated, not just fees on the amount owed if there's money made. So it's not just interest paid on taxes owed. If you don't file, there are big fees, and that's another one I learned the hard way because I thought, well, the company's not making any money, I don't need to worry about it that first year. Wrong. So just know that's wrong. You need to have a conversation with your tax person and make sure that even from year one, your corporation or LLC files. Okay, now bumping down to the bottom of the list, we get into the property itself. Okay, the county offices have a wealth of information for you. Some MLS systems that the realtors use have a link. The title companies have a link. So sometimes if you have a really handy, helpful realtor and they have access to the MLS, or your title person at the title company, they can look up a lot of information for you. But you can also do it the old school way, where you get in your car and you drive down there, or you pick up the phone and you call the county offices to ask questions. Initially on here, because remember I'm talking mostly tonight to if you're relatively new to investing, maybe you've never been down to your county offices, and it would be helpful for you. You'll notice here I say just go down and ask questions and make connections. Talk to the recorder's office, the assessor's office, the auditor's office. Depending on how much time you have, you could just hit every office. They're usually in one building together, and you just get comfy with the staff up front. I remember a lot of times when I would go in and I had no idea how to read one of those abstracts where they have all the recording information on there about what the homeowners have taken out for mortgages, who's on title, all of that information that certain professions are really, really good at reading. I had no clue. But the sweet ladies at the front desk were so helpful. And remember that you're going to attract more flies with honey than you are with vinegar. So be friendly, use your people skills. Go get to know them, let them get to know you. And sometimes it works the same way over the phone. It's obviously better face-to-face to get that eye contact, and that's always nice. But if it's a long, long drive and you're just really trying to get started, pick up the phone, call them and say, hey, I'm kind of new to this, but I've heard about your office and I'm wondering, can you tell me a little bit about what you guys do at your office? And then they can tell you, oh, well, we're in charge of this or this or this. So that's my recommendation. Get to know people, let them become your allies, and if you need information, you can call, and sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they aren't, depending on who answers the phone. But I'm spending a lot of time on that because it really helped me in the beginning to, number one, learn the lingo, number two, learn where to find the information, and number three, learn how to get people to help me because I was pretty clueless. And I hardly even knew what the names were, you know, the terminology that we use as investors. When I was new, right over my head. So it made me feel more comfortable that I recognize that word. Oh, so-and-so does that down at the whatever county. And you start connecting all the pieces together. So that's why I think talking to humans and doing your research and networking is so, so helpful and valuable. Now, into some of the more technical stuff. Let's go back to check. When you are looking at possible investing deals, and trust me, there are stories, not just mine, but all over the board I've heard from other investors. that the names of the owners on title is critical to verify before you get in too deep, because sometimes there's a divorce and sometimes there's a remarriage in the one person. I even know somebody right now, they got married about 5 years ago, they bought a house, he's on title, she is not, even though they're married, and now he has a heart condition. Well, if something happens to him and you just negotiated with him, and now he's the only one with permission to sell the house, you could have just wasted tons of time and energy negotiating when the wife left behind doesn't have any say-so. It could go the other way. The wife says, sure, we want to sell the house. Then you find out they're getting divorced and she has no legal representation on that house. She really has no pull to be able to even negotiate with you. So this number 19 is important. So not only name on title, also taxes. What does the county charge for the property taxes? There is something, you know what, we get to that in a minute, so let me hold off on that. It's about taxes, and it's really important, but it's a completely separate question to ask than what are the yearly taxes. So we'll pause on that one. Check for any liens. If you order a title report from a title company, then it will have a lot of information on it. However, sometimes there are liens that are not recorded yet. So I was just coaching with a fellow, and he was working on a house that a guy has owned for a while, and that guy has not been paying the city fines or doing what the city's been asking him to do, and so there are some unrecorded fees. They're fees at this point that haven't turned into liens, and remember that that's an important thing. So I'll pause there just to get your attention again and say, hey, there are notices. If those notices get ignored by the city or the county, they can turn into fees, and then once it gets to the fees point and they're not paying those fees off, they can turn into liens. Now those liens eventually will get on the title. So there are all of these steps. But you want to first ask the owner some of those questions when you're negotiating. Are there any fees that you know of? Are there any city fines? Are there any code enforcement issues? So that you can see, as well as you possibly can, if there are red flags ahead of you. And then if they say, well, yeah, but I'm not sure what they are, then you can go to the offices. So it's just really good due diligence to get in the practice of finding out the liens that are current and all the liens that are pending. And the title companies are really the experts on reading the title reports. If those things have gotten to the point of being recorded against title, then the title company can interpret that for you. Just like when I went to the county recorder's office and I said, hey, I got this abstract, I don't understand it, can you help me figure out what is owed on the property, what's owed on the first mortgage, the second mortgage, and then any liens attached. Well, your title company can do the same thing for you. And if you live in an attorney state, by the way, when I say title company, you might actually be working directly with the attorney. It depends on where you are required to close. I learned that little trick when I sold my mom and dad's house back in Wisconsin, and they ended up paying a lot because we had to pay for some title work and an attorney. And in Utah, I was just used to working with the title company. The fees are pretty low, very reasonable. Not only the closing fees, but also the tax rates and everything else in Utah is fairly inexpensive. Some of you live in states where it's very expensive, and you want to make sure what those fees are ahead of time. So that's why this part, whether it's a title company explaining the report to you or whether it's an attorney, it doesn't matter. If it's just you, I'd still maybe double check with some of the professionals, especially until you get really good at reading what those are. But it never hurts to double check. I still love to just say, hey, is there anything I should be concerned about on this title report? Because the title officer or escrow officer in charge of your closing or your attorney should be reviewing that for you. That's part of what they're getting paid for. But I'm going to tell you a secret. They don't all do it automatically. Sometimes you literally have to ask them to do their job. So you just want to make sure, hey, did you read through this thoroughly? Is there anything I need to be aware of? That one, we could go into a little bit more depth, but because of time, we're going to just leave that one at that. Just know that when you get to the point of actually buying a place, critical, important, Critical is the title is clean and ready to close. Critical is you understand what liens or judgments or anything else is against that property or about to be attached to that property. You do not want to pick up liens that you weren't planning on that are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and they eat up all your equity or all your profit. So that one's super important. Now, going and meeting with potential private investors and partners, absolutely, that should be an ongoing thing. And then meeting with realtors, interviewing them, finding out who is going to be a fit for you. I know lots of realtors. I am a realtor, but there are a lot of realtors that I would not want to represent me on an investment property. They don't understand investing. They don't have any experience with it. You want to find someone who understands how to figure out cash flow on a property, how to figure out what a good after repair value is, roughly what the cost will be, even though that's more on you to know the cost of repairs, the cost of updating to make it showable and get the best money out of it when you resell. And that's, of course, just if you're doing a fix and flip or you're wholesaling to someone else. So you've got the repair costs that hopefully a realtor can help you with, and then what is a good offer price. So if they understand what's going in and what's coming out in all the different prices, price points, and costs put together, that would be a good realtor to at least take a closer look at. Going to see properties and going to see more properties and going to see more properties. That's where you're going to find your good deals. So right here on 25, taking pictures, getting measurements, filling out the repair cost form, making sure that you understand this is closer to a $20,000 fix and flip, or gosh, we're going to need a new kitchen and a couple new bathrooms, so we're talking a $40,000 fix and flip. What really are your repair costs? That's important. But always continue to find good deals, so you're going to see properties, and find funding sources so that you constantly have a lot of those and you can mix and match them to whatever the deal is when you find it. Running your numbers, you want to take time to do that. So maybe you get a rough estimate walking the property and you think, oh, this is about a $40,000 fix-up. Then you need to get bids. You need to actually sit down and run the numbers as tightly as you can. Cut costs where you can, but you should always have a little cushion in there too. You don't want to cut your numbers so close to the line that if you have any surprises on the deal, that you lose all of your profit. And you definitely don't want to get into a loss. So try to stay above board, have a cushion on top of that, then your profit. And that's part of running your numbers. So that's part of number 27. And making offers, this is where money starts to happen, right? Because everything else was just putting things together, getting set up in business, finding potential deals, potential funding sources. So you have all of these pieces that you're time managing, and every week you try to do a little bit on all of them, or really focus on one or two of those, but constantly throughout the month, month after month, you're doing all of those things. Now you put all the pieces together and you make an offer. Nothing will happen until you make an offer. Nothing will happen until you sell it. So there are two critical things, and at the end I'm going to give you just a couple little tips on the marketing side, because if you don't market and get rid of that thing as fast as possible, remember the cost of money goes up the longer you hold the money. So you just definitely want to make sure you turn these over very quickly. Whether you make the offer, get it under contract, and sell it off to somebody as a wholesale deal and it's fast, maybe you make $5,000 in 3 weeks, but if you're not good at doing this other stuff or marketing to your investor buyers, maybe you make $5,000 in 6 weeks. So your return on your investment changes significantly depending on how fast you are. And your dollar per hour that you're making as an investor can increase exponentially the faster you get at this. So that's why marketing is really important. But I just want to plant that in your head. So another little pause. Making offers, selling it off. Now, if you keep it as a rental, of course, you're going to stop partway through this checklist because you're not getting into the resale part of it. You're just going to hold it, which is just fine. That's why I like this checklist. It's really adaptable. You can go in there and say, you know, for rentals, I'm just going to do 1 through whatever it is. I don't even know what number. We'll try to identify that today. But I only need to focus on these. But if I'm going to do a fix and flip, I need all of them. And if I'm going to wholesale, I'm really just going to here. So you've got these really short, middle, or long checklists. And so you can really get in here and make this checklist what it needs to be for you. But whether you're wholesaling or fixing and flipping, you have to make offers and buy that place, and you have to get it sold either to a retail buyer or a wholesale buyer, so an investor buyer. And if you're renting, you still have to make offers. So this one is critical. It falls in that category of critical, making offers. Then you sign an agreement or figure out your funding however you do it if you don't have your own cash. If the property is a multifamily or a commercial rental, remember that sometimes in the listing or in the sales part, in the remarks, it says, do not bother tenants. You cannot go and just knock doors and bother tenants and say, how do you like living here? But you can knock on a few doors if it doesn't say that, or if it's a large enough place that you're not really going to be bothering anybody. If it's just a little duplex to fourplex, they're going to know who you are, and they tend to talk to the owner a little bit more. But if it's, you know, a large commercial property, 200 plus units, nobody's really going to know if you just randomly knock on a few doors. But here's what I always recommend. You at least talk to the neighbors. So if you're buying a house and you're going to fix it and flip it, or you're going to buy even a multifamily, duplex on up, if you know how is the crime in the neighborhood, how do the neighbors like it, have they seen any problems? Because sometimes, and this is why I really recommend people get to know the neighbors in the neighborhood. Sometimes in a neighborhood, if you have houses surrounding just 1, 2, maybe 3 rental places, they can be the eyesore of the neighborhood. And if they have been, and if the tenants are rough, and if the neighbors complain, and if it's a real problem, you may not want to pick up that problem. So that can be a very important part of due diligence, in particular, less with a house, but in particular with a multifamily or a commercial property. And you guys are welcome to send questions to me anytime you like. So if you want to send anything through the questions or the chat box, feel free. 31 through 40, what is critical on here? Yeah, you're going to negotiate back and forth. Getting the contracts around to where they need to be, that's important. Multifamily or commercial properties need to verify the profit and loss from the owner. That is an important part for sure. I'd actually say that's close to the critical line, that if you don't find out how the property's actually been performing, you're really not doing your due diligence well. And I say not critical because you really can go off of the lease agreements alone, but you just want to be really careful. And I also don't want to set your expectation that every owner is going to show you that. There are some owners that will not share their profit and loss. They consider it to be very personal. It's private and internal to their company and their cash and their situation. But a lease agreement should always come. So gathering leases on the property and checking for verifying the rental amount and when the lease ends, how long it is it month to month, is it for 6 months, for a year, and that is critical for you to run your numbers when you're figuring out how much will this property actually cash flow. And then this other stuff, these next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, really, really critical. Check for building permit issues or any fees or assessments. Check for zoning compliance. Check any utility liens or past due bills from the city that might get attached to the property. Order your preliminary commitment for insurance. You don't have to start the insurance policy, but you just want to get an insurance commitment that they will insure the property. And that is critical because you won't have a lot of protection if you don't have that insurance on there. If it's cash, all of your cash is at risk if that place burns down, right? And if it's somebody else's, if it's a private investor or a partner, then their money's at risk. If it's a lender, they're going to require that you have insurance because then it's their money at risk, and lenders are not willing to do that without an insurance policy in place. So that one is very critical, but even if it's your own cash, I'd say it's critical. You need to protect your cash. And then order a preliminary title report. That's going to go through the title company. Now, some title companies charge you for that up front, and some they just charge you at closing. Usually they only charge you up front if they don't know you that well, but they'll pull title and then let's say you close 8 out of 10 that you ask them to pull title for. If they get paid on all of those 8 that you close, usually they'll just let the other ones go. But I'm sharing that with you because I want you to be aware some title companies will want you to pay for it whether you end up closing or not, because it is a hard cost to them. And that's the other awareness I share with you. It's not that they just order this and it magically appears. They have to pay people to go out and search for liens to find everything. They have to dig, and they do that because what they're doing is guaranteeing, hey, when you buy this property, so somebody else owned it before you and now you're going to own it, from that day that you close and forward, when you own the property, we guarantee that there are no liens on there. That's what the title insurance is for. So the title report and the title insurance come together, and that solidifies that you are buying something that you know of. And if there are any mistakes on the title or liens the title report does not show at closing, the title company absorbs those costs. So they've got hard costs up front for paying people to do the research, and they also have a little bit of a hard cost just to have usually electronic communication with the county records. So they're paying for that, not specifically on your one deal, but very in general for all of the title work that they have to do and pull. And then the title insurance is a whole nother thing. They're literally insuring it from the day you buy it until the day you sell it. So here's another little tip. If you buy it, there's something called a reissue rate. So if you are just buying and flipping and you resell the property, say in 4 months, your title policy to the new buyer, if it's required and you have to pay for that, it can be a lesser amount. So you don't have to pay full price twice. Just ask that same title company, if you go back to them and use them, if they'll do a reissue rate on the next title policy you get. And then review that title report with the title officer or the attorney, your escrow agent, whoever's going to close you. A realtor oftentimes can give you some pretty good information on that as well. But the more eyes on it, the more protected you're going to be, because you're going to miss less stuff. And then order your home inspection. Any other inspections you want. Now, home inspection just basically checks the outlets, the appliances, the general condition. Do they smell anything funny? Is there moisture that they can see? But there are other tests that can go behind the walls. They have actually some tests that can check for moisture or mold behind the sheetrock. Sometimes methamphetamines, termites, radon, those are really important issues in specific communities. So if there is an ongoing issue, in fact, the radon one, I had never even heard of that stuff until I purchased a property out in Indiana, and the realtor I was working with recommended a radon test, and I had to ask, what is it? What's radon gas? I didn't even know. So listen to your realtors, and ask the home inspector too, because they just do a general, I hate to downplay it, but really it's just a general inspection. Those home inspections are not as thorough as some of these other ones, and yes, these other ones cost money. A survey can easily be $700 to $800. A mold inspection, $50 to $100. Methamphetamines, depending on where you live, sometimes you can drop them off and do a self drop for $75, or pay an inspector $150, $250 to do the legwork of not only doing the test but going and dropping it off and picking up results. So there's a cost to all of these. They're not exorbitant to where you say, gosh, I'm buying this place for $200,000, so what's an extra $1,000 of tests, or even $300 of tests to make sure that that $200,000 is safe? And you need to think that way as an investor. Just because something costs a little bit more money doesn't mean you should avoid it. So some of these things are very important to protect the investment. And then the fun part starts. You've got getting in there, taking closer measurements, checking colors, making sure that the inspection reports come back in time. If you find any problems, requesting with the seller, and now you're in the mix of it. This is not setup. This is, okay, we have deadlines to meet. So you're doing your tests, you're checking results, you're talking with your realtor, talking with the title company, talking with partners, private investors, meeting with contractors. There's a lot of work to do in this little section of time. So if you do find some things that need to be fixed by the seller, or you'd like them to fix them, even if they say no, you still have the right to buy the house as is and deal with it yourself. But you can always ask that there are some things that the seller either repairs or upgrades before closing. And if you're writing it up yourself, of course, if I'm mentioning have your realtor write up the addendum, if you're doing everything yourself, your own contracts, your own negotiating, every single thing, then you will write up the addendum. So it is a repairs addendum, and you write it up, you sign it, you get over to them. You usually have a few days back and forth to finish negotiating repairs, and then once you pass that deadline, now your due diligence period is up. Remember, there are generally speaking, three really important deadlines you don't want to miss. So you've got your inspection deadline, an appraisal deadline, and then a funding deadline. So if you catch all those three, excellent. If you're buying with cash, the appraisal deadline goes away. That's a non-issue. If you're investing and you're worried you might be overpaying and you're paying with cash, you haven't run your numbers well enough. So appraisals really are more just for, let's say you fixed it up and you're getting ready to resell it. Just know that when you're dealing with a new buyer, the new buyer is going to be getting an appraisal because they're more likely than not going to be getting a mortgage, and the mortgage lender is going to require that appraisal to make sure they're not overloaning on an asset that's not worth that much. So that's why they do the appraisals. But if you're buying cash, or if you're selling the property off to an investor and you've picked it up as a wholesale deal, appraisal doesn't matter. You don't need to put an appraisal deadline in the contract, and you won't have to worry about that one. So this 47, for example, would not apply to you if you're doing a wholesale deal. But other than that, you definitely want to get the appraisal ordered if it pertains to your type of transaction. Get complete bids on the repairs, gather the loan documentation. If you're getting a loan, they're going to need to verify your income and your assets if that's the kind of loan you're getting, which most people do. Although I heard they are doing some, like they did last decade, right before we had a huge problem and a lot of the mortgages collapsed and that whole mess happened. But it was, I want to say just within the last couple months, I heard they're doing no income, no asset loans again. So kind of risky for lenders. Hopefully it doesn't get out of control again. And do be cautious with them if you're doing that type. But other than those, if it's a regular old loan, then you're going to get loan documentation for assets and income over to your lender. Let them continue on with their process, because remember, this is another multitasking thing. You're helping them get the loan done, so you give them whatever documentation they need, and you also at the same time are checking the property and doing all of these other things. So you've got things going on at the same time, but back and forth. And then setting up a time for closing with the realtor. Now this is, again, where it starts to get a little more fun, because you've passed these deadlines, things are looking good, you've verified how much the repairs will cost, things are lining up to where now you get to move towards that goal line of actually closing and buying the place. So you want to make sure that the title company or attorney has all the paperwork that they need to get ready for closing. Ask them what you're going to need. If you're representing someone else, you may need to show them a power of attorney. If you're just representing yourself, and let's say you're doing it through your LLC, you'll need to provide them a copy of your LLC paperwork so they can verify that you're authorized to be a signer at closing. So there'll be certain things they need from you, but give them as much detail as you can up front, and then they can tell you this is what we need. And then get the money ready to send over to closing. Usually you're going to wire that, but you can do bank checks, cashier's checks, as long as it's not over whatever amount they're willing to go. And in this day and age, wiring money from the bank to closing is very slick, and that's how most title companies will do it as well. When you close, you will get the funds wired to you. But sometimes, especially if it's a smaller amount, let's say it's a $5,000 wholesale deal, having them just cut a check is fine too. You just drive over, grab your check, it's fun. Snap yourself a little picture and hold on to that. I wish I'd done that from the beginning, just to keep a copy of all of the funds. That's one thing that's not as fun about getting things wired. You never really see or touch or feel that money. At least when you go to closing and you pick up a check, it's like, ooh, I actually got money in my hand. So it's up to you, but those are your options. And then you want to get ready to market. Remember I told you in the beginning how important marketing is? Until something sells, there's really no profit made. Everything up to that point is just potential profit. So you want to get your marketing going, order some signs, banners, flyers, whatever you're going to do for marketing. Get the funds over to whoever needs them, and that might be that you're verifying with the lender that you have your 3.5% down, whatever you need to do money-wise, funds. Here's another thing I've had to do before. You're using a partner and they're the money partner, and so you need to figure out how to get the money from their account to the title company or to your account, and then you pool it together with anything you're putting into it and give that all to the title company. So that's very specific, and there are too many little details that can happen. So let's just focus on the fact that you need to get all the money gathered from here and there, including a loan if you need that, so your lender's ready, your potential private investor, your partner, your own funds, whatever you're mixing and matching to make the deals work. And then do a final walkthrough on the property. Usually 1 to 3 days ahead of time is enough time. If there's a problem, you can let the seller know. But if you walk through the morning of and you see a problem, maybe they were supposed to fix something and they didn't, the day of or even 1 day can be a little bit tight on that. So I recommend you lean more towards 2 or 3 days before closing, when you know that you have a deadline set up and you've got a time and where you're going to close. Set up your walkthrough inspection at the property as well. So 2 to 3 days is more comfortable. And then verify the contractors are ready. Just touch base with them. Hey, we're about ready to close. How are you lined up for getting started on the flooring or the sheetrock or whatever kind of contractor they are? And make sure you have that communication with them, because a lot of times they're running from job to job to job and you're not in their mind yet. So unless it's somebody you've worked with a lot of times and you're a more advanced investor, if you're fairly new and you don't have those contractors pulling favors for you, you need to get in their good graces. And that means you're going to be a good communicator with them. You're going to follow up with them on things, keep track of the work so there are no misunderstandings back and forth, and then get them paid on time. And then next time around, they're more than happy to sometimes even bump a job a little bit so that they can start on yours. And those are nice perks to have with your contractors. So make sure it starts right here. Good communication, number 56. Verify with them so they feel prepared and so that you know, and you don't waste any time waiting a week or two because they forgot that you were about to close, and so they lined up another couple jobs that they're getting started on. And then get your listing paperwork signed with the realtor for resale, because once you buy it, it can hit the market. I won't go into that a whole lot because what's our time? Yeah, I won't go into that a whole lot. But you definitely can put the house on the market as soon as you close on it, because sometimes, and I've had this happen, people are waiting for that house and they want to fix it up the way they want to fix it. So they come in and they buy it for you and you make a decent profit without doing any fix-up, and they get to take the house and they're happy because they got some discount and they get to fix it the way they want. And go to closing, get that done. Remember, you're always going to need your driver's license or your passport. You've got to verify who you are and that you have the right to sign, and confirm that the title is recorded. So usually the title company or attorney does this automatically. They just notify you, hey, we just got the deed recorded, it's officially yours, go and get your keys. But if they don't, you should confirm that on your end and then go get the keys from the owner or realtor. And now this whole next section is going to be marketing, marketing, marketing. Put your yard sign up, get your key box on so people have access, get the contractors in there, fix up the property, remember to pay them on time, and here's a protection for you. Look at number 65, I'll point this out. Take pictures of the progress. This not only ensures that you'll get better quality of work out of them because they know you're taking pictures and they're mindful of it, but it also helps to avoid any disputes down the road. I'd like to promise you that they will never end up in court with you, but I can't. So you just want to make sure that you always protect yourself, and pictures do a great job of that. Contracts are great, but pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? It's really true. You can show something and say, this is what they ended up not finishing, so that's why I didn't pay them the last 2 payments, something like that. It can happen. And then make sure that you sign the listing agreement with the realtor. Not only did you get it ready and prep, but here's where you actually meet up with them, sign it, or sometimes they send it to you digitally. Stage the house. I've got a few pictures coming up on that, so we'll keep that short. Watch for items the buyers do not like. And even though you might have said, I want this and this and this, in the middle of doing the work, you might change your mind. There might be some feedback from some of the first buyers that are walking through that they really, really hate that paint color, or they really hate this or that. And if you hear it once, no big deal. Hear it twice, maybe start paying attention. But if you hear it over and over, I'd really recommend you at least consider and price out what it would cost to fix whatever the complaint is. All right, new buyers. When they're sending you offers, that's awesome. You're going to negotiate them, pick your favorite one, get them under contract. Then you're going to go through the last part of setting up title with them, making sure that the closing goes okay, and make sure you remember to take your ID to closing again, because remember, we're talking about start to finish, buying, fixing up, reselling. You're talking about 2 closings, so same deal applies. Now, if you're closing with the same title company, they might have your previous paperwork, like your company paperwork that verifies you are a signer on the company. But if they don't, just be prepared to take it again. Keep it in a good, safe place, because you're going to need it often for your closings. And then after closing, just verify that funding and recording is done. Hand over the keys to the new buyers. Finish up your final accounting. Divide the profits with whoever you need to, whether they're private partners, private investors or partners. And then set a portion of the funds aside. These are your funds. Set it aside for marketing, so it's easier for the next go around. You can send out more flyers, more mailers. You can do all kinds of advertising to find more deals, more good deals. And on the marketing on the sales side, unless you're using a realtor, and they usually cover all those costs right up front for you. That's what part of what you're paying them for. But if you're marketing yourself, you want to expand your marketing budget. So back to the beginning when I talked about a business plan and setting your initial marketing budget, maybe you only have $100 and you use it all on ink for flyers. And that's what your first deal looks like. But maybe by month 6, you've got your first deal done, and now you have $500 in the marketing budget, and you can expand. So you want your company to always be growing and becoming more cushioned with the expense money. That would be a definite goal. And then set a portion of funds aside for taxes. Remember that just because you get, say, $50,000 from the title company, you don't get to spend it all. A portion of that needs to go for taxes. So they're not going to pull your taxes out for you. This is your own business. This is something that first-time business owners don't always think about. And they're used to having their employer pull taxes out of their paychecks for them. You're not going to be in that situation. So remember, you own this business. You need to set aside your own taxes and be a smart business owner. So next year it doesn't come back and bite you in the butt that you forgot to set some money aside for taxes, and now they want $5,000 and you don't have it. And then 81, update your profit and loss sheet. Make sure that you file quarterly taxes when you need to. The first year you usually get a freebie. You don't have to worry about it, but talk to your tax accountant or tax advisor, and by the next year be set up to pay your quarterly taxes. And then review the transaction. Now these last 3, they're not specifically for getting this deal done, but they are for becoming an excellent investor. So you're going to sit and you're going to review the transaction and see, what did I not do so well that I should do differently next time? And what did I do well? But definitely write down areas that you can improve, and not only what you can improve, but how. Do you need to add another team member? Do you need to slow down and do more research in a certain stage? What is it that you either got by with the skin of your teeth on this time and got lucky, and you don't want to skimp or skim by next time? Or what is it that costs you money? If it actually costs you money, you want to learn from that and write it down. Always be learning and growing and improving. And then celebration is really important. Make sure you do something fun, even if you just buy yourself a little memento or make yourself a little picture book of your before, during, and after pictures. Something that makes you feel good, because remember that we're not just doing this to make money, we're doing this to bless our families and to be happy too. So one of my favorite things is after a closing to go out to dinner with the family. It just lets me have the opportunity to thank them for the time and energy that they allowed me to put into that deal, and that they get to have a little bit of a celebration and a blessing with me. That it was a unity thing, a family thing, not just a mom thing. And then rinse and repeat, because if you really want to take this from, hey, I did one successful deal, to I want to grow a business, that rinse and repeat part is really, really important. So don't forget that one. Now, wrapping up, just a couple of things on marketing. Marketing is very critical. In our marketing webinar, if you want to watch that, I know we have over 30, I can't remember exactly how many, but about 30 different marketing ideas for you. Some are going to be free, some are going to cost a little bit of money, and some are very expensive. So you need to decide what your budget is and then track it, because sometimes you might put a little bit of money into something and get a great return, or put a little money into something and get no return. So make sure what is effective in your area. Word of mouth is always my favorite. It's free, it's effective, humans like human contact, and that's an excellent way to grow your business. Flyers, business cards, referrals, radio, newsletters. It's just a few. Remember, there's a lot more, and so I will encourage you to become an expert of at least 2 or 3 of those. But hopefully you have anywhere from 5 to 10. I know the experts on marketing that I've heard, that I've listened to, they say you should really plan on having a minimum of 7 different ways that you market once you get really going. So I'm just pointing out a few that would be good starter ones, but you want to expand up to the point where you have at least 5 to 10 of those going at any given time. Now, seller financing. This is something that can actually help you sell your properties faster. We do have a whole webinar series on it. There are 6 lessons that go with it, and we cover all of this information. So how do you do a lease option? Maybe you want to put it up for rent, but it could be a rent to own, just like this lease option. Different wording, but it works basically the same. And then a contract for deed, or a land contract, an owner carryback, or a wraparound mortgage. These are all very legal, very flexible, and not too many people in the world do them. So you would stand out in your community if you offered seller financing when you're selling your properties, and they will get snatched up way faster than just the regular go get a loan and come back to me kind of deal. Now with staging, whether you do this or your realtor does this, remember you want to appeal to everybody's senses. The point of staging is that when they walk in the house, they go, oh, it feels so good in here, and it smells good, and it looks good. You want them comfortable, like they want to buy that house, they want to live in that house. So you're going to pay attention to sight, sound, taste, smell, and feel. You can, if you say taste, well, that's weird, it's a house. You can put out a plate of cookies, you can put out a little plate of fruit, at least a bowl of candy, so they've got something that when they're walking through the house, it's just pleasant. Flavor changer. So some of these staging ideas, I wanted to just show you a simple one. You can see how this looks beautiful. It's a beautiful home. It's very open. It's a nice little alcove there. But look at how different and homey it looks when it has the table and the chairs on the rug with a mirror. There's not that much to it, but what is in there is beautiful. So you don't have to get into a bunch of fancy things on the wall. Just one simple thing on the wall can be enough. And these things in the middle, they could cost thousands of dollars, but they can be also just a few $100s. And if you invest in those and then you move them house to house, they pay themselves off actually very quickly. And then this shows you the difference with lighting. Look how beautiful and bright and open this one looks. So if you have any questions, go ahead and chat them over to me. Otherwise, we will be back in 2 weeks from tonight. We are not going to be doing a webinar next week, but we do have all of the videos for you to watch on YouTube. If you want to jump over to our I Live Accelerated page on YouTube, you can study to your heart's content over there. We have tons of information and are always adding more. And if you have very specific questions, or you're ready to get started in doing investing, but you're not sure how, remember that's what we're here for. We are coaches. We've been coaches for a long time, 17 years and 20 years. So feel free to contact us. We would be really, really happy to help you on your journey to success. And if you just came tonight to get some free information, we hope you got some really, really good nuggets and that you are blessed by it. And don't be afraid to share. Let your friends and family, people at your investment club know that we're here, what we're doing, and if you think that we can help them and bless them, that would bless us as well. So you guys have a great couple of weeks, and we will talk to you 2 weeks from tonight. If you'd like to join us, I'll give you a little cheat out on Facebook this week about what it'll be like or what the topic will be, and then you can sign up right then and there. We'll put the link in it, or you can just watch the Facebook Live if you prefer as well. We'll definitely be streaming that one also. So God bless you. Be well. Thanks for joining us.